everyone, Alfredo sauce. Creamy, cheesy, garlicky deliciousness, right? Can you make it and can it at home? We buy it in the grocery store in a jar that's canned. I know most people say no you can't, but I say yes you can. If you're interested in finding out how I make it and can it at home, come along with me today on Meadows and I will show you how. Hi everyone, I'm Lori and welcome back to my kitchen. Say today's recipe is Alfredo sauce and I'm going to show you how I make it and how I pressure can it to make it shelf stable. Now one thing that I do want to mention right at the very beginning is that I have tried to do this in quart jars and I've had failure in quart size. But pint-sized jars works amazing and I've had it stored on the shelf up to a year safely. So today's recipe I will share is a single recipe. Feel free to double it or triple it. It makes 4 pint-sized servings of sauce. So what it calls for is 2 sticks of butter, and I want you to know real butter. Don't be putting margarine in this. Real butter. So 2 sticks of real butter or 1 cup. And then it calls for 2 quarts of heavy whipping cream. Now I really decided that that was a little too thick after I pressure canned it, and I wasn't super happy with the results. So what I do instead is I do 1 quart of half and half, and then I put 1 quart of whole milk in it. And yes, this is home canned milk, whole milk. If you prefer to just use whole milk out of the refrigerator, that's fine. I wouldn't suggest using skim milk. It would be a little too thin. You do want your Alfredo sauce to be thick and rich and creamy. So I suggest using whole milk. So you have 1 quart of half and half, 1 quart of whole milk. And you know, if you wanted to do any other like partial substitutions and put some of that heavy whipped cream in there, or that heavy cream, feel free to do that too. I just really like the results with the 1 quart of half and half and the 1 quart of milk. So we have our butter, we have our half and half or cream or milk or whatever you personally feel you want to use. And then 12 ounces of fresh grated Parmesan cheese, 16 ounces of cream cheese, 5 tablespoons of garlic powder, and then salt and pepper to taste. So that's it. Not really a whole lot of ingredients. This recipe is a little on the expensive side just simply because fresh Parmesan cheese is pretty spendy. And in a lot of places, heavy cream is pretty expensive also. But with the modifications of the whole milk and the half and half, that does bring your cost down a little bit. But to be honest, you know exactly what's going into this recipe. There isn't any modified food starches in it. There isn't any preservatives in it because you're using raw whole ingredients. And I just think it turns out absolutely delicious. So I'm going to pan down at this point in time, and what I have in my saucepan is I've just taken my cup of butter and I've just very on low, I've melted that butter and turned off my heat temporarily until I can get my other stuff added to it. And what you do is you just mix your cream or your half and half, and I previously froze this half and half, and so the texture is a little bit different after freezing, but it still works fantastic just right from the freezer. You know, just defrost it. So we have our half and half there, and you know what, I forgot to bring my jar opener over. Just give me 1 second. Can't get into my canned goods without my jar opener. Sometimes with my canned milk I do give it a little bit of shake just to make sure that the cream is mixed back into the milk good. I'm just searching for a lip here. All right. That was really sealed well. Okay, so we have 1 quart of half and half. We have 1 quart of milk. And we have our butter that's been gently melted. Now I'm just going to turn this on low, and I'm going to stir it just until my half and half and everything is hot, because I did defrost my half and half, but it's not hot. And of course my canned milk was already at room temperature. If you use milk from the refrigerator, that's going to be pretty cool too. So you just want to make sure that everything is pretty warm before you put all the cheese in. So we have our butter, we have our half and half, and our milk in here. We're just going to heat this. And once it gets hot, then I'll come back and I'll add the cheese and make another little video clip. Alright guys, so we're back. So I've got my milk and my half and half, and my butter is completely melted. Everything's good and hot. But you want to be very careful and do this over low heat so that you don't scorch anything. And this is where now I'm going to add all of my cheese. I've cut my cream cheese into a little bit smaller chunks just so that it will melt easier. It's not in such a great big block. No rhyme or reason to it. But I've got my cream cheese and I have my fresh grated Parmesan. And after that milk and butter mixture is good and hot, make sure that your butter is completely melted before you start adding your cheese. Then you can go ahead and you can add your cheese to this. And I'm just kind of putting them in here by hand so that, they don't fall and splash the hot milk up at me. And all of your fresh grated Parmesan. Oh, I'm telling you, you guys, this stuff is just to die for good. It's so delicious. Now, I'm not saying that it's healthy or good for you, but it sure does taste good. So then on that same low heat, and you want to kind of continue stirring this because it will scorch easily, and you definitely don't want your Alfredo sauce to taste scorched. So you just stand here over this low heat and stir this milk and cheese and butter together until all of the cheese is completely melted. Now once I reach that point, I'll make another short video and show you the rest. Hey guys, I came back. I'm still standing here stirring my half and half and milk and cheese and butter and stuff so that my cheese will melt. And I forgot to tell you that this is the point, while you're melting this cheese, this is the point that you might want to take your prepared jars, and what I do is I put them into like a 9x13 pan, and I put them in the oven to get them heated up in order to be able to pour the hot Alfredo sauce into the jars. You want hot sauce, hot jars, or you might have some thermal shock. So while you're standing here melting this cheese in the sauce, I just take cold jars, cold oven. I stick my jars in the oven, and then I turn it on to 200 degrees, and while the oven is preheating, those jars just heat up with the oven. I gotta get it down to 200 degrees here. There we go. So while I'm melting the cheese, my jars are heating up in the oven, so they'll be good and hot then when the sauce is ready to be packed into those jars. So just another little handy tip there. All right, I'm gonna go back to stirring and melting all this cheese, and we'll come back in just a few minutes. All right guys, so all of my cheese is melted. My Parmesan is completely melted. My cream cheese is completely melted. I did switch over to a whisk towards the end, just to make sure that all of those little clumps of cheese have been broken up. I stirred this constantly through the heating process. So now what you're going to do is you're going to add 5 teaspoons of garlic powder. Now not garlic salt, garlic powder. Oops, that is my tablespoon measurement. I'm glad that I caught that. I need teaspoons. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we're going to do salt and pepper to taste. Now generally what I do is I just kind of, as y'all know, I'm a dump cook, So I just kind of eyeball it. I'm going to take a 3-finger pinch of salt, and this is pink Himalayan, maybe just a little bit more. And we're going to get a pretty good pinch, 3-finger pinch of pepper, just ground black pepper. I think I might just do a little tiny bit more of that also. And then we're just going to whisk that in really well. Now this is still on low heat. You want to make sure that your sauce stays nice and hot while you're adding all of your spices. Get that really well incorporated. And this is the point where you want to do just a little taste test, okay? So what I do is I just grab a small bowl and a spoon. Just put a little bit in there just so that you can taste it and see if you're happy with how much salt and pepper is in there. You know, that is really good. Really good. I think I'm going to add just a touch more garlic, because garlic is one of our favorite things, and sometimes I'll use fresh garlic in here too. But since I'm just using the powder today, I think I'm going to put just a little extra taste of garlic in there. And get that incorporated well. So you can play around with your seasonings a little bit, do it to your taste. Everything's all nice and melted and smooth, and we are ready to get this into our jars. Now, like I said before, I heated my jars in the oven, so they're at 200 degrees right from the oven. I'm going to take my hot jars out of the oven, just right next to my work area right here. Let's see if we can go down a little bit more with this camera. Now these jars are going to stay hot quite a while simply because I have them in an aluminum pan, and of course that's going to keep the heat quite a bit. So if you're working with a very large recipe, like if you've doubled this or tripled this and you need to fill a lot of jars, I would say only take out a small portion of jars from your oven at once. Now, you can see that I have one extra jar. That's just in case I have a little bit left over that will not fit into my pint-sized jars. Another thing that you're going to need is a clean, wet washcloth to wipe your rims. Now, this is just wet with water. When you're working with canning dairy, you never want to use vinegar on your cloth. Only wet water with dairy products. So I've got my funnel in there, and I've got my sauce ready. My jars are hot. I'm going to fill these to within 1 inch headspace. You'd want that 1 inch, that full inch. On my funnel, the neck of my funnel is approximately 1 inch. So I'm just going to fill up to the bottom of the funnel, and that will give me the proper headspace. You don't want to get too shallow on this headspace with this thick sauce. So make sure that you leave that full 1 inch headspace, and ladle that hot sauce right into your hot prepared canning jars. Now this sauce will thicken a little bit during the pressure canning process. Just get it right to that 1 inch. So if it seems just a little on the thin side to you, don't worry about that. It's going to thicken up during pressure canning. Wipe your rim well. Place your lid. Place your ring. And finger tight, okay? Now, I've told you before, and I'll tell you again, when you're working with a hot product, you always want to have a hot canner. So my canner, and you can see it's steaming. My canner is hot. So hot product, hot canner. There we go. I'll get you back down here where you can see again. Just a titch more in that one. Move that over to the next jar. Wipe your rim, make sure that you don't have any sauce on there. My lids are giving me problems here, guys. There we go. Clean flat lid and your ring. Screw it on. Finger tight. Don't crank it down with your whole hand. Just finger tight and into the hot canner. Okay, so I'm going to quickly fill the rest of my jars and get them in the canner, and then I'm going to vent the pressure canner. Make sure I'm on frame there. Yep. I'm going to vent the pressure canner for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to place my weight on the canner and bring it up to pressure and pressure can these pints of Alfredo sauce for 10 minutes. Of course, weight is going to depend on what your altitude is. But for me, where I'm located, I'm at around 1,200 feet, and so I'm going to do 12 to 13 pounds of pressure on my pressure canner. But make sure that you look it up according to your altitude, what poundage you should be pressure canning at. So, jars go in the canner. I'm going to bring that to a vent for 10 minutes, and then up to pressure and pressure can for 10 minutes. So, I'll get that all done, and then I'm going to come back and show you the finished project so that you can see how beautiful this is in the jars. So I'll be right back in a while. Alright, so we're back. I slowly brought my canner up to a vent over medium heat. I vented for 10 minutes and then I placed my weight. I brought it up to the appropriate pressure and I pressure canned for 10 minutes. And then I shut the heat off and allowed my canner to cool naturally on its own for about an hour. After my airlock dropped on its own and my gauge was down to 0, I removed my weight and I cracked open the lid just like how you see it right now. And I walked away for another 10 or 15 minutes to let it cool a little bit more. When you're pressure canning, never be in a hurry to do anything, and especially on the cool down period, because if you try to cool that canner off quickly, that's when you're going to have siphoning that occurs, and all that super hot heated stuff inside your canner. If you try to get that canner to cool off too quickly and you expose it to the cooler room air, to the superheated contents inside your canner, that's where you're going to get siphoning. All that super hot product inside your jar is going to push up and out your lids. So don't ever be in a hurry to open your canner. So I let it cool off naturally on its own. Then I removed the weight and I let it cool off for another 10 or 15 minutes, cracked open just like this, just so that that cooler room temperature air didn't rush into my canner and make those jars overflow. So now I feel like it's safe to remove this without any overflow issues. And I will show you how these jars turn out. Now when they first come out of the canner, you'll see a little bit of separation. You see down here? It's really hot. See how the fluid is separated? And if I can get it closer to the camera, no, the lighting isn't good. But when you do this on your own, you'll see that it almost seems like there's like little pockets of air inside of your jar. That's totally normal, okay? Totally, totally normal. You didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing to worry about. This is how they should look as they come out from the canner, with that little separation, okay? Wow, that one has a lot of separation. Ouch, I can't move that jar. See how much that one has at the bottom? Okay, I'm going to grab a previously canned jar and I'm going to show you one that's cool. So, here's a batch that I did, I think 3 days ago. Hopefully you can see there's still that separation. And can you see, let's see, I'm opposite here in my screen. Can you see these things that look like bubbles in my jar? Air pockets and bubbles. That's totally normal, okay? This jar is completely sealed. I haven't washed these up yet, so I'm going to take the ring off and show you. Just by holding the ring, I can support that whole jar on just that lid alone. But anyway, this is how they look coming out of the canner. Now, my fresh ones that I just canned today, these that I just took out of the canner, I'm going to let them sit a full 24 hours. Let them cool, let them seal. I'm not going to touch them. I'm not going to try to remove the bands or anything. Let them completely cool and they will seal on their own. Once they are cool, this is what you come up with, okay? And let's see if I can get on the frame there myself. Ha-ha! Hi! Anyway, so you have these little things in the jar that kind of look like little air bubbles or air pockets. Now remember I told you that it would thicken a little bit more during the pressure canning process? That's exactly what happens. And it kind of looks like it's a little dried out in there, but it's not. You just take this jar after it's sealed, completely sealed, after 24 hours, completely sealed, completely cooled, you shake this little bugger up. See, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's still very liquidy in there. All right? And look at how beautiful this is. There's no more air pockets. There's no more separation. I don't know what's best, far away or up close. Let me try to flick off this light here. Maybe that's better. Okay, no more air pockets. Let me pick up one of these that I just canned today and see if maybe with no light. Aha! With no light, you can see what I'm talking about. See all those dots in there? Now I can't touch this jar like I did my cool one, but see all these little dots in there? Those are actually little air pockets, and you can really see the separation on the bottom now. This is like the whey from the milk and the half and half. All right, so after this cools and seals, then you take your cooled and sealed jar and you just shake it up, just like I did right now. I'm going to go and grab another one just to show you again with the light off. All right, so here we are. Oh yeah, that shows up a lot better with that overhead light off. You see how that is? With all those little air pockets in there. That's totally normal. Give it a shake to reincorporate all of your ingredients, and look at how smooth and wonderful that is. That one you can really hear how fluidy it is. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So, like I said, whew, sorry, now you really got to see my face. It was probably better with the light off, right? Anyway, like I said, those little things are nothing to be afraid of, okay? Because think about this. You have milk, you have cream, you have cheese in there, and the extreme heat of your pressure canner kind of separates them in a way. So all of the fluid goes down to the bottom of the jar where the solids go up. And when the solids go up and the fluid goes down, the solids kind of get a little bit on the dry side. Oh, that's hot. I make myself laugh sometimes. Anyway, those solids, when they go up, they get a little bit dry because all of those fluids have dropped down to the bottom of the jar. But after they have cooled off and sealed completely, you can shake it up and it will stay that way. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, like I said, I really suggest only doing this in pint-sized jars. I've tried it in quarts, and to the best of my ability, I cannot get them to stay sealed over a couple of months. So if you want to do quarts, go ahead and do so, but I pretty much can tell you that they are not going to remain shelf stable for over a couple of months. If done in pints, where the heat can actually penetrate through that jar and through that Alfredo sauce really well, I've had these last over a year. Thick, rich, creamy, garlicky, wonderful Alfredo sauce that you can put over pasta, you can put on pizza, you can make chicken Alfredo. You can even use that as a gravy just right over toast. I mean, the possibilities are endless. And you don't have to always have the ingredients on hand. You can have it ready-made on your shelf, pop it open, heat and serve. Just so simple and so wonderful. So that is how I do Alfredo sauce. I hope you enjoyed your time with me today in my kitchen and canning Alfredo sauce. I hope you give it a try in your own home. Be courageous, guys. Seriously, go outside of your box. This can be done and is being done all over the country. Oh, I love that sound. Did you hear that little pop? Another one of those sealed as it cooled. So anyway, I hope that you have the courage to try this at home. Honestly, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And I hope you enjoyed it. And we will see you the next time on